Hello and welcome to another timeless video. Today we're checking out this monoblue Painter's Servant combo deck that's planning to mill the opponent out in one fell swoop thanks to this new special guest introduced in Lorwyn Eclipsed. A 2-mana 1/3. As it enters we choose a color. Typically doesn't matter too much, although we have a slight preference for blue. And then all cards that aren't on the battlefield, spells and permanents are the chosen color in addition to their other colors. So kind of a strange ability that on the surface doesn't do much until we combine it with a Grindstone, a 1-mana artifact. For 3 mana we can tap and activate, saying target player mills 2 cards. If 2 cards that share a color were milled this way, we get to repeat this process. So with a Painter's Servant naming whichever color and a Grindstone activation, we can now fully mill the opponent out, and it only really takes 6 mana total, 1 to play Grindstone, 2 for Painter's Servant, and then 3 more to activate it. So we can potentially win the game on turn 3 without any fast mana, just turn 1 Grindstone, turn 2 Servant, turn 3 activate. So that's our game plan. Now to support it, we do need some fast mana to potentially get this combo online a little bit sooner, because Timeless is a ruthless format. So we do have Ancient Tomb in the mana base, tapping for double colorless at the cost of 2 life. And then we also have 3 different Moxen. Chrome Mox needs to imprint a blue card from our hand that's not an artifact in order to make blue mana. Then Mox Amber needs a legendary creature before it can tap for a blue. We have 8 legendary creatures total between Tamiyo and Emery, which are both also very easy to get in play early, so the Mox Amber can make additional mana for us. And then Mox Opal, also pretty easy to enable with Metalcraft, at which point it can also make a mana of any color. And then we mentioned our 2 legendary creatures. Tamiyo we can play to start making clue tokens when it attacks, and Tamiyo is also pretty easy to transform in this deck with all our cheap card draw effects. And then we get the Planeswalker in play, which can maybe get an instant or sorcery back from our graveyard to replay it, and the -7 ultimate can also be achieved rather quickly, and that can also maybe draw half of our deck to find our missing combo pieces. And then we have Emery, which has affinity for artifacts, so with 2 artifacts in play we can play it for just a single blue. When it enters, mill 4 cards, and then we can tap Emery to replay artifacts from the graveyard, so this can also potentially access a Grindstone or Painter's Servant that we might have milled, or that the opponent maybe has answered, so that also gives us more redundancy. And then the reason we want to name blue with Painter's Servant is to enable our own Force of Negation, which if it's not our turn, we can pitch a blue card from our hand in order to help cast it, to counter an opposing non-creature spell and exile it in the process. So normally we cannot pitch any of our artifacts to Force of Negation, since those are colorless. Same with lands. Lands, even islands, are considered to be colorless, but now with the Painter's Servant naming blue, we can pitch any of those lands or artifacts to a force if we don't want to get rid of our actual blue cards. And then rounding out the deck, we have a lot of card draw to help assemble the combo. Brainstorm and Ponder are classics, especially good with shuffle effects. We do have 4 fetch lanes to help shuffle, so that's why we have 1 of each of these fetch lanes. Diversifying just in case our opponent has a Pithing Needle, but you could easily play 4 of the same one. And then 3 islands we can fetch with it. And then if we, let's say, keep the top card with our Brainstorm, draw into it, but don't like the remaining 2 cards, we can still maybe mill them away with an Emery. We can technically also activate Grindstone on ourselves, although that's not a play that comes up very often. But we can also use Stock Up, which is in and of itself a powerful card draw effect. Looking at the top 5, putting 2 of them in hand, the rest on the bottom. So if we put 2 useless cards on top, we still maybe get to dig a little bit deeper to find something more useful. And this is another card that heavily benefits from the fast mana from Ancient Tomb and the various Moxen. And finally, Thoughtcast, another affinity for artifacts card, can routinely cast it for just a single blue mana to draw 2 cards. So hopefully with all this card draw and all this self-milling, we can quickly assemble a Grindstone plus Painter's Servant. And then the mana base also has 4 copies of Seat of the Synod as an artifact land, tapping for blue, so incredibly helpful for enabling some of our affinity synergies to be off to an explosive start. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. We have a functional hand. Would have been quite a bit better with an artifact land to play a turn 1 Emery. And now I could play Polluted Delta to play around Strip Mine, but we've got plenty of lands in hand, so if they want to Strip Mine me, be my guest. I think I will still play the Mox Amber. in case they have a Chalice for 0. Turn 1 Ocelot, so probably some sort of energy deck. So this turn I can go Painter Servant into 1 mana Emery. We mill the Mox we can maybe play. Just looking for Grindstone now. And yeah, our 1-3 and 1-2 block the Ocelot quite well. Now their removal is likely to exile the Painter Servant, so then we're not going to get it back with Emery. For now, Amped Raptor. They hit Goblin Bombardment, I believe, yep. So this is incredibly scary if they have an Ajani in hand specifically. And back up Emery. So yeah, I'll get back the Chrome Mox, play it pitching Emery, and then we can Thoughtcast for 2 mana. Could also consider keeping the Emery, just play this to discount Thoughtcasts, because playing another Emery could maybe mill the Grindstone, so then I can play it next turn. Yeah, maybe I don't need to pitch Emery, we have plenty of mana as is. And then Thoughtcasts can use Ancient 2 mana in case I need more blue mana afterwards. Find a backup Painter Servant, which we can play. And then I'll wait on playing Emery in case they remove the first one. And maybe play the Fetch in case we draw Brainstorm. I can get rid of the other lands in hand. Now, with Goblin Bombardment, our opponent can potentially attack with their first strike creatures and threaten to finish off whatever I block with. But now with 2 blockers, maybe that still works out. Voice of Victory can make more tokens for the bombardments. No attacks. Alright, do I fetch? I don't think so. Although draw another fetch land. So this is a bit of a Hail Mary. But yeah, I could play another Emery. Our opponent could take out the first one by sacking 2 creatures. I don't see them doing that. And we mill the Grindstone. So target Grindstone, play and activate. And that should be game. So glad we held on to the second Emery. They can take out 1 servant, but not both. They do have Flasion there, but nothing to shuffle their graveyard back into their library. And quick peek at their deck list in case you were curious, as we rank up here. But looks like a red-white energy. Some versions also splash black. This is just pure red-white. Although looks like a Jeskai deck right now. Alright, sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a reasonable hand. Definitely relying on Ponder to find some more card draw effects or shuffle effects. But at least we've got a Force, so we won't get comboed out. And we'll Ponder right away. Alright, so those are good cards. Thoughtcast, I'll be able to cast relatively soon on the cheap. Brainstorm is good with fetch land. So is this the order we like? Next turn draw Brainstorm, turn after draw Polluted Delta. Yeah, that seems fine. Could have also drawn the Brainstorm first if we're worried about a discard spell, because I don't know if I want to force a Thoughtseize here necessarily. So then Brainstorm in hand, Thoughtcast on top might have been slightly better. Our opponent's got the Strip Mine, so that's going to delay casting my Thoughtcast. Anything else? A Grief. Well, this is kind of the worst case scenario, losing my lands And our opponent playing an uncounterable discard effect. Not sure what they take. Could be the force anyway. Yep. Then I may as well play the grindstone and save the brainstorm. Although I could also brainstorm in response to another discard spell just to hide my more important cards. Yeah, I guess that's fine. We're pretty far from Thoughtcasts, so I don't think the one artifact is going to make a difference. Alright, and there's a Thoughtseize, in response Brainstorm. And then Thoughtcast and Force we probably want to hide. They can take the Grindstone, can maybe get it back with Emery later. And then which one do we draw first? I wouldn't be able to cast the Force next turn. So I guess we'll hide that a bit longer. Grindstone's gone. Can play the shuffle. But I don't think I will be shuffling yet. Demonic Tutor's fine, assuming we can counter whatever they search up. So I don't think I'm tapping out for Thoughtcast. We'll have to keep up Force. Of course, I could be lucky and draw into another blue card I can pitch to the Force. But let's just play it safe. So yeah, a ton of disruption so far. Another Grief was to be expected. And yeah, I guess I cannot force that one. So now I regret not just casting my Thoughtcast while I had the chance. Although their opponent is 2-for-1ing themselves to make this happen. Pitching Sorin, so kind of the black-white Necro Reanimator deck. Well, if their last card is Reanimates, we're in trouble. And Reanimate. Well, that was a perfect hand, not much we could do. Now I can still beat Saint Elenda, but I don't have much time. Yeah, that's a 2-turn clock. Emery was a decent draw. If I play Emery, it can get back a Grindstone. I guess I'll fetch here, save myself 2 damage. I mean, I could technically still Thoughtcast if I'm willing to give up on a Mox, which is maybe fine. Fine, Chromox Brainstorm. Should I play it out in case they draw another discard spell? I don't think so, since we're still digging for Painter Servant. So take 11. So how much mana am I working with? 5, 6, potentially 7. So I need to brainstorm into Painter Servant. And then I may still be a mana short. Find Grindstone and Painter Servant. Okay. So I can play the land. Emery can also get back a Mox. Although, is this enough? Play Grindstone. Yeah, this is technically just enough mana. Opponent is holding priority, could just be a Dark Ritual. And then blue is fine. And then could wait until their upkeep, but that's not going to make a difference. Definitely need to do it before they draw. If they have removal for Servant, we lose. Sheoldred's Edict, sacrifice a non-token, wow. So yeah, they got punished for waiting. Had they cast it right away, they easily win this game. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Hand seems functional. Turn 1, we can ponder. Turn 2, I can maybe shuffle one of the cards away as well. I've got a bunch of artifact lands to enable Thoughtcast. Alright, Force is probably a card I want to draw right away in case we need to play it. And then I want to draw, I'm guessing Ancient Tomb over another seat. But then I'll be able to shuffle away the other seat if needed. If our opponent strip mines me, then I'm probably fine drawing more lands. Turn 1 Ramunap Ruins. Kumano, so it is just aggro. Don't think I need to force that one. So they will have some 3 damage effects to take out Painter Servant. So I may want to wait to play that one out. For now, yeah, what's my play then? If I play Artifact Land, Mox Amber, I get a 3 mana discount, so I can play Thoughtcast to draw. But then I'm drawing into a card I don't necessarily want. So, yeah, kind of a tricky spot. I think I will just shuffle, get an island, play Servants, and name blue. No downside against the red deck, and then I can also pitch the Mox Amber to the Force and keep the Thoughtcast. Have to be careful naming blue if you're up against another blue deck, because then they can use the same trick potentially to enable their Force. Now, if they're thinking about Force of Negation, they could also hold their burn spell until my turn. And then I wouldn't be able to stop it. Actually, do I get rid of a land here? Maybe don't want Ancient Tomb against the burn deck. Keep the Mox to discount my affinity cards. That wasn't too surprising for them to have another burn spell. Alright, another Thoughtcast isn't the worst. 2 mana draw 2. And a Tamio. Probably not gonna survive, but at least it's soaking up another burn spell. Burning Tree into a Generous Plunderer. And don't mind getting some treasure. Does Tamio attack? Can attack, make a clue, transform her, shrink the opponent's team down. I think that's worth it. Find a backup servant. Tamio's just gonna plus. Can Thoughtcast again. Find a Force. So we're making progress. Can even cast a Painter Servant with an Ancient Tomb, for instance. Still keep Force of Negation available, hard cast. But I can also pitch the Flooded Strand. Do need to make sure to tap the Ancient Tomb though. And I also have the option of sacking the Clue. Now, I guess a Plunder is pretty scary because we have all these artifacts. I did forget about the ability here where it deals a bunch of damage to us. So shouldn't have been overzealous to play all my artifacts out. Alelia is fine. Everyone at Tamio. Still taking 7. Could have considered sacking the Clue in response, I guess. So yeah, Tamio, I guess, can still survive. And then we'll wait and see if we need to force. Doesn't look like it, so then I'll sack the Clue. Can still force with Flooded Strand, of course. Alright, so we've got a lot of looks at Grindstone. Starting with stock up. And yeah, I kind of have to find it now, because I'm probably dead next turn to the Plunder attacking me. Did not get there yet. Brainstorm can try again. So I can Brainstorm. Find the Grindstone. Alright, did we get there? Play Flooded Strand, can fetch an island. And yeah, we should have enough even without fetch land. Can use a treasure. Now our opponent still has an upkeep where they can cast some burn spells. But I have a force up as well. Okay. And there we go. Quick glance at the opponent's library in case you are interested. Gotta provide the additional value. So, mono red aggro with Annex. Yeah, the Plunder is a good call if you're expecting a lot of artifact decks. There's some graveyard hate too. So pretty disruptive red deck. The Vortex also a good way to punish free spells like the various evoke elementals. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand is close to being good. We can Ancient Tomb out a Servant on 1. Mox Opal's our second artifact, but we're missing a third. So if I had a different Mox, this hand would have been pretty good. I do have a Force of Negation, so maybe I can still try it. We'll give it a shot. Opponent with a Chrome Mox on 1. Still gonna let that slide. Great Furnace points towards an artifact deck. Painter Servant, alright, so the Mirror Mage. How does that change matters? They named red. Blue would have been more useful for me. Can name blue now. Technically didn't need to play Servant. Grindstone is enough, so that's the card we need to fight over. They might be playing Galvanic Blast, although it's already enabled. I'll block. Alright, found our blue mana. Things are a bit confusing when everything's both blue and red. But yeah, now we can ponder. Or I can first brainstorm and then ponder thanks to the Mox. Alright, so force seems good. Probably can get rid of the second Mox Opal. Triple force is probably a bit much. And then now I could stock up instead, which is also a way of getting rid of the top cards. And then didn't find anything super useful. Might still want to keep an extra Mox for a small mana boost, or I can go for the force. Just to have more answers to an opposing Grindstone. And we'll pass it back. Raghavan's fine. And Emery could be useful. Also, potentially combos with our Ponder. So, don't particularly want to keep any of these. Tamio would be fine, but not necessary. So we can just shuffle. Find another Painter Servant, which I'm also not in a hurry to cast. So I guess I'll ponder again for now. And that's another pretty unexciting set of cards. Yeah, at this point I think I shuffle again, and then maybe just play Emery, hope to mill a Grindstone as we draw Painter Servant number 3. Did not mill anything useful. And there's no real upside to playing the Painter Servant. I can pitch it to force now at least, since it's a blue card. Mox Amber's fine. Fable I can probably fight over. Pitching a Painter Servant. Tamio is not the worst. So yeah, I don't actually have any artifacts in my graveyard for Emery. Just play Tamio and pass. Can hardcast a Force as well.
Curious. I must investigate this scroll further.
Mox Opal's fine. Pyrogoyf, I cannot counter. Goodbye, Tamio. And another land. Yeah, not even sure if I play the land, if we draw Brainstorm. If they take out Painter Servant, Emery can get it back. So I could consider chumping. Tormod's Crypt stops Emery, I guess. So I guess I will no longer be chumping with Painter Servant. They had another Pyrogoyf as it turns out. Just going face. Alright, Emery can chump. It's not doing anything with the Tormod's Crypt out. Alright, finally. Grindstone activates. And we get a glimpse at the opponent's deck as well. So yeah, more of a red build here. GG's. I don't think they can deal 8 damage in their upkeep. Graveyard's gone, and there we go, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We have the combo. Problem is, not a lot of mana. Do have a Force, which I can cast, pitching maybe the stock up. Use Tamio to make some clues, maybe help hit our land drops. And then any of our Moxen we draw are potentially enabled. So maybe this is good enough. It's very matchup dependent. If we need to be fast, then we might struggle. If it's a matchup where a free counter can buy us a couple turns, then we might be okay. Alright, looks to be the Charbelcher combo deck. Or maybe the Balustrade Spy combo and Tomb. Yeah, that's fine. I'll counter the Reanimate if they have it. The one issue with this matchup is that milling my opponent with Grindstone. So they actually would have had a turn 1 win here if it weren't for Force. But yeah, as I was saying, the problem is still, if I try to mill my opponent, I'm basically doing what Balustrade Spy is trying to accomplish. Our opponent probably has Progenitus to avoid getting milled out. So I'm very glad our opponent conceded here, because it would have been pretty complicated to actually win this game. Probably would have had to just attack with my 1-3 Painter Servant over and over, hoping to stop whatever is next. Because if our opponent just casts a Balustrade Spy, I don't really have a way to stop it. And then they'll mill a bunch of Creeping Chills, get back a bunch of creatures from the graveyard, and probably have something like Progenitus to avoid decking. So then the Grindstone Painter Servant plan is not very effective. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand is functional. Opponent on a red aggro. Turn 1 Ragavan. And another Mox Opal. So I can go Seed, Grindstone, Mox Opals enabled, and then still Ponder to set up Ragavan. Alright, so I can let them hit the stock up, which I guess they could cast. I really don't want to give them a Chrome Mox. Tamio seems like a good draw since it naturally blocks Ragavan. In fact, I can actually play Tamio now with a second Mox Opal. So maybe that's what we'll try. So no shuffle. and hope we can stave off an attack. If not, they'll hit the stock up, which at least isn't free value, unlike the Chrome Mox. Alright, I'll block. Hope they don't have a Monstrous Rage, I guess. Yeah, there it is. Standard staple. Or, well, used to be. Too good for standard. Good enough for timeless. At least they won't be able to cast a stock up. Alright, so my turn. I think we start with Ancient Tomb into stock up. And we're just looking for Painter Servants. Find another Tamio, although I'm not going to be able to stop Ragavan. Kind of like just another stock up. And then the question is Force versus Ponder. A land could also come in handy if we're going to cast a bunch of stock ups. And then I could still Brainstorm. Can maybe wait for Ragavan to attack. Swift Spear's Teachings. I think this is still the nerfed version. Yeah, it's Prowess or Haste. Because when they change cards that are Alchemy cards, it affects Timeless as well, whereas normally it does not. So this is a hasty Dragon's Rage Channeler, presumably. And a Lava Runner. So all 1-drops. 1 card left. Let's Brainstorm. Did not find what I was looking for. So I can let them hit a land like Ancient Tomb. Although at this point Grindstone is less useful to me than a land might be. I'm taking 5, 6, 7, 8. So I may not have another turn. So then, yeah, Grindstone, a land can go. I need to stock up, find Painter Servant. Yeah, I don't see how we win this. The Monstrous Rage was pretty brutal. So stock up, step 1. Find a Thoughtcast and another Mox Opal. If I found a Painter Servant, I might have still gotten there with the Chrome Mox and the Ancient Tomb. But yeah, I think we're at the end of the line here. I can play Chrome Mox, not pitch anything, just so I can Thoughtcast for 1 mana. But I don't see how I'll have enough to cast a Painter Servant. And yeah, the answer is we don't. Ponder out of curiosity. There's a Servant with a Force. So I can cast a Painter Servant. But I'll be dead before I get a chance to activate Grindstone. Yeah, got kind of close, but against aggro, the life loss matters, of course. GG's. Just drew a few too many Grindstones this game. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hands. Lots of cheap artifacts to enable metal crafts. Opponent seems to have their own Force of Negation. Alright, pitching Brainstorm. I wonder if I should have baited with a Grindstone. Next turn we can still potentially Thoughtcast if I draw Mox. Never mind, Strip Mine will set us back. Now Chrome Mox. I don't think this is a matchup where I need Force. What I need is mana. Is this another Force? It sure is. Well, at least they're 2-for-1ing themselves. I think I play the Grindstone just for affinity purposes. If I draw Ancient Tomb, I can cast it. Yep, this is an Architect deck. Mox Amber does not quite set up Thoughtcasts. So now they have a fetch land, they can maybe draw a card. Emery was a great pickup. And milled our Painter Servants. Alright, so next turn we could cast it. Do I play Mox Amber now? I guess I do. So Architect turns another land into a draw effect. And yeah, we can go ahead and try to play the Servant. Opponent could have mana drain to counter. Then we'll just try again next turn. And then do I name blue? Would enable an opposing force, but it doesn't really matter when we have Servant in play already. And the Grindstone. So I guess I will name blue. Means I can pitch Chrome Mox to force if needed. Orcish Bowmasters is fine. And then I can use Chrome Mox as my third mana source to activate Grindstone. So they would need some sort of stifle effect. This attack could imply another Bowmasters, in which case I don't want to block the army, because then they can deal 3 to this. Blocking Bowmasters itself should be fine. Yep. Okay, and even drew the land, so... yeah, opponent probably wanted to wait to make sure we had the third mana source, but we sure did. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We have a functional hand with force for interaction, facing goblins, Skirk Prospector. Could be part of some other combo as well. Okay, gotta fetch islands, play Tamio. Could run out Mox Opal if we're worried about Chalice of the Void.
Nothing like warm tea and a fascinating story.
Pass a turn. And I'm interested to see what's next. Might be a Rakdos Goblins. Or maybe just a infinite sacrifice combo deck of some sort. Well, Goblin Chieftain definitely points towards a Goblin deck. Alright, so we want to attack with Tamio. Make another artifact. And then... could Ponder to try and hit a land drop. Which would be ideal. Mox is fine too. So I can take the Mox Amber, play it, play Emery, which will in turn mill the other Mox as well. Versus I can Thoughtcast, but I don't particularly need to draw these. I guess I would transform Tamio to shrink their goblins down. But let's go for Emery. So do not end up using the extra mana. Another Prospector. Take 4. Back up Emery. So where do we want to start? Can once again attack with Tamio, or could leave it back as a blocker. If I'm planning to Thoughtcast, I may as well attack, make an extra clue. I could stock up here and look for Grindstone and additional mana sources to get all my combo pieces in play. Yeah, I'll start with a stock up. we found Grindstone, and Ancient Tomb looks good too. Versus Chrome Mox, I guess, would be reasonable too. But Ancient Tomb's plus 2 mana. Simple math, really. So then Emery can get back a Mox Opal, play it. I can play both Servant and Grindstone. Yeah, I guess that's fine. And then I'm not in a hurry to attack with Tamio, can just leave it back. So we have 2 blockers. Force for protection. And yeah, opponent knows what's incoming and scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a reasonable hand, missing our 2 combo pieces, but we've got a good amount of card draw to find it. Force for protection to make sure we don't get comboed out. Turn 1 Tamio, can transform it with a Brainstorm next turn after making a clue. Swamp Dark Ritual. I'll let the Ritual resolve, I'll counter the Necro. And then Thoughtcast versus Brainstorm. Probably keep the Thoughtcast actually, since it's actual card advantage. Alright, Brainstorm with a fetch would have been pretty good too. So Tamio attacks. And then with a Mox I can still cast Thoughtcast and transform Tamio, which is probably still okay. And then next turn we have Ponder plus Shuffle. We could try and work up towards a Tamio Ultimate. More realistic to just minus at some point and rebuy a Thoughtcast. Is this an Orcish Bowmasters? Just a march on Tamio. And they did it in my turn, so I couldn't force it again. Alright, that happens. Opponent's down to 1 card in hand. And yeah, I can Ponder, Shuffle, and then still stock up. Take the Painter Servants. Shuffle and look for Grindstone. Could also play the Servant now, which would enable Mox Opal. I can sack the Clue to draw. It's also reasonable. If I find a Grindstone, I can maybe already cast it alongside another Mox. Alright, we found a Force, which I probably want to keep, and another stock up. Because my opponent could have another Necro in hand as their last card, so we want to be able to counter that one. And then stock up is still, of course, great if we can cast it. And our opponent's gonna scoop it up. Alright, I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand, I would say. Turn 1. We could already kind of go off a little bit. See if there's any free counters. Doesn't appear to be. Chrome Mox pitching Force. Play Painter Servant, play 1 mana Thoughtcast. Does leave me without interaction, but we'll get to refuel nicely. And then I could name blue, does turn on opposing copies of Force of Negation, but they didn't seem to have one in hand so far. And this way I can pitch my own artifacts to a Force. And yeah, we picked up some good cards. Emery can maybe mill the Grindstone and play it. Starting Town. And a Static Prison. And goes for Painter Servant. So this could be some sort of Mardu energy deck. Brainstorm's interesting. If I cast it, I can put useless cards on top, mill with Emery, or just set up some artifacts for me to mill. So I'll start there. Also have the fetch to shuffle. Didn't find any artifacts. Artifact lands I cannot play with Emery. So, yeah, I mean, this turn, what are we thinking? I could just get rid of the 2 lands and then play Tamio plus Emery, have some nice threats in play, and still a bunch of card draw. Or I could play the artifact land, play another 1-mana Thoughtcast, maybe get rid of Tamio, because Tamio's less helpful in finding my combo pieces, even though we could transform a Tamio with a draw 2. So play Emery. Did mill a couple artifacts at least. So now I can still Thoughtcast. And I'll save the second Emery, I think. Alright, so not a bad turn. Opponent still has to keep paying energy for the prison, but assuming they're an energy deck, they'll be able to keep that up. And next turn we can keep digging. And a Guide of Souls. Ancient Tomb's also powerful. So Mox Amber looks to be the most powerful card we can return at the moment. But let me cast a stock up first. Alright, Force, Grindstone. Force is good insurance. Grindstone's one of our 2 combo pieces. And then I could stock up again and still play the Grindstone, keep up Force. Find a backup Servant and another blue card. So get back Mox Amber. Play Grindstone. And next turn we could win the game. Got a Force as backup. So we've taken a lot of game actions in just 3 turns here. And Johnny's fine.
To the hunt.
They need a way to transform it for it to be threatening. Okay, so Painter Servants on blue again. And activate. And that'll do it. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a promising hand. Lots of fast mana. And one of our 2 combo pieces, lots of card draw. Opponent on Blood Crypt into Channeler. Okay, so could be an Underworld Breach combo deck. For now, could Chromox play Painter Servant on turn 1, although have to watch out for removal too. I could already Thoughtcast, so that's probably the plan. And then pitch, maybe this just Brainstorm when we can just draw 2 instead. Don't really have a shuffle effect unless you count a stock up. Alright, and then I'll wait on the Chromox. While Painter Servant can make all my cards blue, Chromox still specifically doesn't let us pitch an artifact to it. But with Force of Negation, it can be quite relevant. Now Grief, probably taking stock up. I'm gonna hope they don't also have a way to reanimate it, because then I'm losing both card draw spells. Takes Thoughtcast first. And a tapped Theater, so at least no reanimate right now. And then they're still 2 types away from Delirium. Okay, so start with... well, I guess I cannot even cast a stock up actually, since Mox Amber's not enabled. So then Painter Servant it is. And then, yeah, again, I cannot imprint anything except for stock up, which defeats the purpose. So finding Emery or Tamio would also help. They do have Orcish Bowmasters. That one's scary for drawing cards with Brainstorm especially. Bobble will have a look. Okay, no attack from the channeler at least, and we found Grindstone. I mean, that's the combo. So if I pitch stock up, I'm still 1 mana short. So we'll be patient. Could get a second Painter Servant down. Maybe that is worth it in case I have removal. Since I don't expect him to remove the Grindstone. Now the only concern is our opponent somehow having something that benefits from getting milled, but nope. Opponent scoops it up, I'll take it. So we got to see this mono-blue Painter Servant combo deck in action. And yeah, it's not often that cards are powerful enough to make their way into the Timeless format, but of course the Painter Servant combo already a classic in other formats, and now also makes its way here. Now the deck can have some pretty explosive starts where we can win the game pretty early on, thanks to Ancient Tomb and all the fast mana from the Moxen. But on the other hand, we also have some pretty awkward matchups at times, mainly the Balustrade Spy combo decks, where the opponent actively wants to be milling themselves, so then if we try to mill them out with Grindstone, we're doing them a favor, and they also typically have Progenitus, which gets shuffled back into their library, so then milling is not really an option. And there's also the occasional Show and Tell combo deck, which has Emrakul in it, and if we mill Emrakul, it also gets shuffled back into their library alongside every other card in their graveyard, so then milling is also no longer an option, and without the mill win condition we don't really have a great backup plan. Now when it comes to best of 3, we could pretty easily swap out the whole Painter Servant package with other win conditions like Kappa Cannoneer and some of the other affinity cards, so that's not too difficult. Can also include more counter spells. Double blue on mana drain can be a little sketchy, but still potentially possible, but especially Metallic Rebuke should be easy to enable. I also considered Mishra's Bauble as another nice card draw engine with Emery, so those are all considerations, and you can potentially find a nice mix between this main deck combo configuration and your more traditional affinity decks that just want to draw a lot of cards and maybe win the game with a bunch of artifact tokens or a huge Kappa Cannoneer. But yeah, for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.